See these thousands of giant river turtles? This is how they were born, on a sandy beach near a tributary of the Amazon River. Now imagine your family will have the same number of siblings. Yes, it's impossible to remember so many relatives, but the turtles solved this problem long ago. How? Let's find out. Being a penguin among penguins is like living inside the movie Being John Malkovich.
Malkovich.
Seriously, how do you recognize your friend or a family member when they all look the same? Okay, forget about penguins. Do you know the amount of offspring sea turtles have? Take one adult female. Let's say her name's Karen. Karen recently turned 20, which means she's old enough to start procreating. But I was gonna go to college. So Karen can lay about 100 eggs at a time. Let's assume that exactly half of her kids are female. This means that in another 20 years, when they become old enough, Karen will have 5,000 grandchildren. If half of them are females again, then in another 20 years, Karen will become the great-grandmother of 250,000 little turtles. But the story doesn't end there, because on average, sea turtles can live for about 80 years. This means that by the time Karen gets old, the number of her descendants will reach 1.25 million. Keep in mind, we count only the first clutches, and only the female line. But some turtles make several clutches per season, and breed once every 3 to 4 years. Eventually, there will be so many relatives that my head almost burst from doing all the math. Literally. How do you figure this out if you're a turtle? And why should animals recognize their relatives anyway? To avoid adding them on Facebook? In fact, there are serious things at work here. Getting to know your relatives is a way to help avoid conflicts within the family. Yeah, it does not always work. Just remember the young males who were banished from the pride. But peacekeeping is only one of the reasons. The other one is perhaps even more important. Animals can identify their relatives in order to avoid inbreeding. That is, interbreeding between close relatives. This is a much more serious issue than it might seem at first glance, and it puts the entire population at risk of dying. The offspring born from such a union will be very sick and may not be able to continue the lineage. There's a reason why in the human world, marriages between close relatives are often considered a crime. Turns out animals can really recognize their kids, parents, even siblings, in order to avoid inbreeding. But this cannot last too long. And it's not just about the amount of memory, it's a question of lifespan. Take cats, for example. Most domestic cats will probably never meet their grandparents. After being separated from their mother, kittens seem to forget her rather quickly and usually do not recognize her if they're reunited. But this does not mean the mother will be a total stranger to the grown kitten. He may recognize the smell of his mother or grandmother, but most likely he will not perceive relatives as family in our understanding. This is called prior association. Another way the animals recognize each other is called phenotype matching. The baby learns family traits like a distinctive scent, remembers them as a baseline, and then compares other animals to it. It's as if the whole family is using the same perfume. You smell it and realize that's one of your kin. This way, animals can recognize even previously unfamiliar relatives they see for the first time in their lives. Would you recognize your cousin if you hadn't met him before? Cats probably would. The things you do to avoid inbreeding. Dolphins have learned to recognize each other by their signature whistles, and their memory will not fail them even 20 years later. Some scientists even argue dolphins have the longest memory in the animal kingdom. Horses went one step further and learned to recognize their keepers by photos. Moreover, this works even if the animal and the keeper have not seen each other for more than 6 months. Now look closely and tell me which of these people did not give you an apple. You've probably heard about how cats and dogs remember their owners, or maybe you even saw these heartbreaking videos where humans reunite with their pets after a long time apart. Joy, hugs, well, you get the idea. But what about animals that don't remember their offspring at all? Nature decided there's no risk of inbreeding here, or what? Or is it all about memory issues? Turtles know the answer. They can easily be considered animals with one of the longest lifespans, and they do not complain about poor memory. According to numerous studies, turtles can memorize information and store it in their brain for 2 years. They simply cannot live without a good memory. After all, they need to know the behavior of predators, understand where to get food and where to migrate. Despite all this, turtles do not remember their children. How come? Well, have you seen how they're born? Not a single parent nearby. Little turtles just hatch from eggs, immediately crawl to the water, and no one tells them what to do. After laying eggs, the female no longer takes part in the life of her offspring. Remember the touching relationship between the sea turtle Crush and his son from Finding Nemo?
Give me some fin. Noggin. Dude.
Real life is way different from the Pixar classics. Apparently, turtles do not remember either their parents or their offspring, though at the same time, they know the exact location of the beach they were born on. They not only know it, they can also find the way there even after many years, also to lay eggs. Turtles, like many other animals, navigate the sea by sensing the invisible lines of the magnetic field and using them as a compass. But it's one thing to know where north and south are, and quite another to return to the beach that you last saw 20 years ago. And back then, you had other things to do rather than memorize its distinctive features. Turns out each part of the coastline has a certain magnetic signature that animals remember. Well, and then they can move to their destination as if using GPS. Turn left behind the coral reef. Watch out for large swarms of mackerel ahead. And you know what? If you move the turtle eggs from the beach where the mother laid them to another place, the baby turtles will consider it their home. That is the very point where they can return. To figure this out, scientists had to move the eggs, wait for the little turtles to hatch, tag them, and wait. Wait about 14 years until one of the adult turtles returns. So what's the result? Turtles remember the exact place they were born, but they cannot recognize their own kids? Yeah, that's Parents of the Year. But imagine how much money they saved on birthday presents. Okay, just kidding. Remember how many grandchildren and great-grandchildren Karen is supposed to have? In real life, there's not nearly as many of them. Small turtles can die without even hatching, or on their way to the water, or in the early years, swimming closer to the surface, or, according to calculations, only one turtle out of 1,000 or even 1 out of 10,000 can survive to adulthood, depending on the species. Karen's family's much smaller than I thought. But if turtles have an excuse for not remembering their relatives, then what about humans? Can a mother recognize her child whom she's not seen or hardly seen? Will the nephew realize the man he sees is his great-uncle?
Who are you?
You.
No, not me, you.
Yes, I am you.
Looks like it's all about the sense of smell again. Our distant relatives, primates, cannot boast of an impeccable sense of smell, but they still distinguish the smells of their kin and others. Compared to some chimpanzees, humans almost smell nothing at all. The thing is, evolution gave us other perks, taking away the strong sense of smell, though sometimes it's still triggered. Studies of the 1980s have shown that mothers can detect their baby by smell even after spending less than an hour with them. For some, it only took 10 minutes. Babies, in turn, also recognize their mothers by smell and mainly react to it, until Face ID features available. Otherwise, we don't recognize each other very well. Surely you'll remember the neighbor's kid whom you saw when he was very small, if he took after one of his parents. Would you recognize your own distant relative, who you've never met? No, it's just impossible. But people are good at something else. Unlike animals, we do not forget the dead. In any case, we remember them much longer than any other creature on Earth. Yes, over time, some details like the voice are erased, but the image of a person still remains in the memory. Just as I wanted to say this is where the animals can never be like us, the elephants appeared. You probably already know that they're damn smart, empathetic, and all that, but elephants also know how to grieve. I mean, really, almost like people. After one of their kin dies, they return to the body, sometimes pull or push it as if performing some kind of ritual. Moreover, even those elephants who barely knew the deceased will still come to pay their respects. And that's incredible. See you later.